Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. A Lethbridge family and their pets displaced following a weekend fire. Plus, healthcare and emergency workers take a big step and leave their boots at the foot of the Alberta legislature. We tell you why. And a devastating typhoon tears through the Philippines. We speak with a family member in Alberta.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. A house fire wreaked havoc on a Lethbridge West Side home on Sunday morning. Fire crews from 4 stations arrived at the scene only to find the garage full of flames. The residents and pets were displaced, but there were no injuries. The first responders were able to keep the damage from spreading to the other areas of the house. Troy Hicks, the fire prevention officer for the Lethbridge Fire Department, says damages are estimated to be over $250,000.
What we think it would cost of the amount of damage, and then really we've been told to double it because then you have to add work to get this done. Inside the home has minor smoke damage, but that's just what we can see by the naked eye. Once the company comes in and starts taking some drywall off, they'll do readings in behind the drywall. There is always the opportunity that smoke maybe got behind some of the electrical outlets or anything, which could lead to possibility of that number going up.
The cause of the blaze is still under investigation. The Lethbridge Police Service continued its 2021 Christmas Check Stop campaign over the weekend with a total of about 525 vehicles checked at various locations across the city. BCN's Naveen Day attended one of the check stops on Saturday and has this story.
Common things you see around Lethbridge around Christmas time are decorations, festivities, and check stops. And the 2021 Christmas Check Stop program is well underway. And according to Acting Sergeant Brent Paxman of Lethbridge Police's Traffic Response Unit, the number of impaired drivers they have caught has decreased over the last 5 years.
For percentage-wise, we've checked about 1,200 vehicles before tonight, with only 6 impaireds out of those. A few like GDL suspensions and suspended drivers, stuff like that, but full impaireds, 6 out of about 1,200, which honestly is pretty good.
And the president and victim support volunteer for Mothers Against Drunk Driving agrees that the lower number of impaired drivers is promising. However, she says party hosts need to keep a watchful eye on their guests.
We see it all too often on our roadways, especially when the holiday season is here and we've got the Christmas parties and such happening, that the people that are hosting those parties are maybe not getting that message out there to their guests that they should choose a sober ride home. So when there's plenty of taxis, there's Uber, and you can also phone a sober friend or family member, I think it's pretty clear that we all should be driving sober.
This is the second Christmas season in which Bill 21 is in effect. This allows police officers to issue stiff roadside sanctions rather than link criminal charges for driving while intoxicated. However, Paxman says there are some circumstances where you may not avoid a criminal charge and you might find yourself in the back seat of the most unpleasant Uber ride ever.
There are what we call exigent circumstances. That would be any children in the vehicle, repeat offenders, any collision resulting in injuries, deaths, stuff like that, major damage. There's a couple others, but essentially those are the main.
Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgin attended the check stop site with MAD to help hand out candy canes and wish drivers who passed the screening a safe and happy holidays. Check stop efforts resulted in 3 immediate roadside sanction fails. These drivers face substantial fines and fees and must also participate in an educational course and install an ignition interlock device in their vehicle before they can apply to have their license reinstated. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Thank you, Naveen. The food banks in Lethbridge turned out to be the big winners this weekend following the Mayor's Hockey Challenge. The fundraising event garnered 615 pounds of food, donations, and gifts received in addition to almost $3,000 in financial contributions. The estimated total raised from the event is approximately $4,500. Among those who took part in the event were Mayor Blaine Higgin, the City of Lethbridge Exhibition Park, and members of the media. Mayor Higgin says plans to hold further community challenge events are already being discussed for 2022, and he looks forward to finding new opportunities to give back to the community. And despite the incredible success of that event, Lethbridge Interfaith Food Bank is continuing to make one last push in the community for donations just ahead of Christmas.
Our community always comes through for us at Christmas time. This year has been a little bit more of a struggle than we've seen in years past, and we are particularly short on financial contributions. We know a lot of people will continue to give through the Christmas break. The supply chain issues have been a challenge for us. We were hoping we would have avoided them with earlier purchasing, but sometimes these last minute things that we're short on, we haven't been able to tap into. So we are really hoping that what we are able to provide is more than enough for the families who have requested support.
A group calling themselves the Alberta Boot Project made a big step at the Alberta Legislature on Monday. Boots from healthcare and emergency service workers have been left at the front steps of the ledge. As Micah Quinn explains, organizers of the project say these are the boots of workers who have been forced into an unpaid leave of absence for not accepting the COVID vaccine.
Caitlin King and Sierra Ratchford were both placed on an unpaid leave of absence from their paramedic jobs after they refused to take the COVID vaccine. After this news, they were wondering what to do next, and that's where the Alberta Boot Project came in. The project is only a week old, and King says it has already turned into a huge movement.
People who work for Alberta Health Services or in healthcare and are affected by the mandate to take a pair of their shoes, write on a piece of paper their job title and years of service and submit it to a drop point in their local community. And then we had volunteers from around the province step up to take those shoes and transport them into Edmonton, where we have categorized them, done inventory, photographed them. We had an amazing photographer come through and then packaged them up to come to the legislature today and represent just a tiny portion of the people who will be affected by this mandate.
In less than a week, that page has over 2,000 follows and growing by the hundreds every day.
As of Monday morning, over 740 boots have been dropped off at the legislature.
And more are trickling in throughout the day. So we're keeping track of those as they come in. We wanted to have a very accurate number of how many boots, how many years of service were represented, and how many people from each profession. So we've got that going. Currently, we have 11,682 years of service represented just in the boots that are here.
In a statement to Bridge City News, AHS says that as of December 16th, approximately 1,550 full and part-time AHS staff have been put on unpaid leave for not being vaccinated. The statement went on to say that the workers will be able to return to work if they provide proof of full immunization.
We're not anti-vaccine. You know, there's a lot of people who are supporting this movement and encouraging us on who are dual vaccinated. In the end, whether or not you participate in a medical procedure is and needs to remain your choice and your choice alone. And that choice is not something which should be held over your head at the cost of losing your job or your ability to participate in society.
For more information on the Alberta Boot Project, you can visit them on their Facebook page. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Thank you, Micah. Beginning Tuesday, Alberta Health Services will be taking additional precautions to limit the transmission of COVID-19 at acute and continuing care sites in light of the emergence of the Omicron variant. Designated support persons or visitors who are a close contact or have a case of COVID in their home will not be able to access continuing care or AHS acute care sites for 14 days from the date of last exposure. The measure will apply to anyone who is a close contact, including individuals who are fully immunized. Frustration over the weekend mounted for Albertans wanting COVID-19 antigen test kits. Pharmacists have been reporting that people have not been coming in to pick up just 1 or 2 kits, but more like 5 to 9 kits per person. Strathcona County Councillor Lauren Harvey says many rural Albertans are disappointed as well, since the kits aren't readily available in their communities. In a statement on Friday, a spokesperson for Alberta Health said pharmacies will receive more rapid test kits early this week. The University of Calgary has canceled the rest of in-person exams for the semester. The university says it's because of rising cases of the Omicron COVID-19 variant. Exams are to be delivered online. Officials say it's possible there could also be a delay to the start of in-person classes on January 10th. A rally was held in Calgary over the weekend to protest a controversial Quebec bill that prohibits Quebec teachers and other government employees from wearing religious symbols such as hijabs and turbans on the job. Calgary Mayor Jody Gondik said that a motion will come to council this week that proposes putting money toward the legal challenge of Quebec's Bill 21. But Franco Terrazzano of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation says Calgarians shouldn't be on the hook for this.
I think this is a big issue, but regardless of where you stand on it, municipal tax dollars should not be going towards a social justice issue in Quebec. Calgarians expect their tax dollars to stay in their communities for important projects like high quality policing, good roads, fixing potholes, but not towards social justice issues in Quebec. So if the mayor thinks that this is important, then we would encourage her to make a big contribution using some of the $200,000 per year salary that she has.
Meantime, Calgary's mayor says if the federal government is unwilling to step in and do something, someone has to speak up, and if that someone becomes a coalition of municipalities, then so be it. RCMP in Alberta say their major crimes unit has taken over a missing persons investigation after they say the man was found dead over the weekend. Police say 31-year-old Landy Shirt's family reported him missing earlier this month and that they last saw him on December 3rd in Musquecheese, south of Edmonton. Investigators say he was also seen later in Goodfish Lake and Lac La Biche. Shirt was found dead in an apartment building in Lac La Biche on Saturday, and an autopsy is scheduled for later this week. The Northwest Territories government is warning that passengers in certain rows on a WestJet flight from Kelowna to Calgary on December 13th and another WestJet flight from Calgary to Yellowknife later that same day need to isolate. The update was included in an announcement Sunday that said the Omicron variant of COVID-19 has been confirmed in the territory. The warning to isolate applies even to passengers who are vaccinated. The territory has already issued public exposure notifications about the flights, but originally said that only people who were unvaccinated needed to isolate. It says it changed the advisory to, quote, align with Omicron's higher risk of transmissibility, end quote. Starting today, British Columbia is placing restrictions on events and gatherings. Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry says it's in an effort to help hospitals not be overwhelmed by the new variant.
The events and gatherings order will be amended so to include all indoor personal gatherings, including at rentals, vacation properties, resorts, are limited to your household or the residents, plus no more than 10 additional individuals, or one other household. And this is if everybody is vaccinated. Venues with a capacity of 1,000 or more people will be limited to 50% capacity, whether that's a concert, hockey game, theater. If the capacity is more than 1,000, then we are reducing that by 50% capacity. All New Year's Eve parties will be suspended, no matter their size.
Dr. Henry estimates the restrictions will last for the next 6 weeks. Manitoba is also implementing new restrictions to help curb the spread of the Omicron variant. Beginning Tuesday morning, there will be limits on gathering sizes and capacity at restaurants, bars, gyms, and places of worship.
We need to introduce new measures and introduce them now. We need to delay the emergence of Omicron to give all Manitobans time to get their third dose and reduce the demands on our healthcare system as much as possible.
Quebec's premier also announcing the complete closure of bars and casinos and says restaurants can only open between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. Schools will also close today until January 10th. Quebec reported a single-day record of 4,571 new COVID infections today. Ontario reported 3,784 new cases today, as many newly eligible residents 18 and up scrambled to try to book a vaccine booster shot. Meanwhile, experts are saying this new variant could actually be creating a super immunity in patients who are vaccinated but get COVID-19. A U.S. study shows that patients generate antibodies that are as much as 1,000% more effective than in patients who were just vaccinated. Our Foreign Affairs contributor, Lisa Daftari, says they're even giving Omicron a special nickname.
They're calling this more of an Cold than Omicron, meaning it's actually might be a great way for people to get immunity with a cold that is not as bad as what the original or Delta, which was a worse variant, more severe variant was. We're not seeing the number of hospitalizations, but the White House sending out a message saying that if you are vaccinated and boosted, of course, well, then you should be fine. But if you're not vaccinated, prepare for a winter of death. This is literally coming from the White House.
You can catch my full interview with Lisa Daftari coming up after business news. Grain and oilseed farmers may be able to soon fight fungal infections in their fields more effectively. A molecular plant pathologist in Lethbridge has launched an agribusiness to help do this by developing a microbial radar system, which allows farmers to measure the amount of disease-causing agents or spores in their fields in real time.
Potentially up to 75% of these fungicide applications might be unnecessary or unwarranted because they're either off target or they have no target. So you're spraying when no real disease is present. It must be stated that fungicides are a very powerful tool, and when they're used correctly, they provide an unprecedented level of control. It's just that farms in general around the world rely very heavily on fungicide usage, and there's a better way to handle it.
That was Brent Pachelski, who says that they're developing the tools and technologies to try to mitigate the reliance of Canadian agriculture on fungicide applications. You can catch that full interview in the second half of the show. Students, contract workers, and volunteers in Saskatchewan will soon be protected against sexual harassment in the workplace. The government's new legislation comes into force on January the 1st. It makes it clear that any unwelcome action of a sexual nature constitutes harassment. Labor Relations and Workplace Safety Minister Don Morgan says the government wants to protect all workers from harassment and create safe, healthy workplaces. The death toll from the strongest typhoon to hit the Philippines this year has surpassed 375 people. More than 50 people also remain missing after Typhoon Rai tore off roofs, uprooted trees, and wiped out crops. We spoke with a southern Alberta woman who is concerned about her family back home.
The place where the typhoon really lands is like near on my uncle's place. So we tried to call them, and then it's like it took them 2 days to answer us. And then they told us like all the roofs are gone, especially their house there because it's near on the sea. And then like everything just went down so fast. And then when I tried to call my mom again, she is on the hospital. We don't have any contact anymore.
12 captive missionaries in Haiti found freedom last week by making a daring escape, eluding their kidnappers and walking for miles over difficult terrain with an infant and other children in tow, according to the Ohio agency that they work for.
After discussing their plans, the group felt they should escape on the night of Wednesday, December 15. They made plans as they could, but ultimately placed their situation in God's hands, depending on Him for protection and guidance. During the night, as God directed, they prepared. They put on their shoes. They packed water in their clothes. And they prepared for the journey. They stacked their mattresses in a corner, as I understand it, and prepared to leave. When they sensed the timing was right, they found a way to open the door that was closed and blocked, filed silently to the path that they have chosen to follow, and quickly left the place that they were held, despite the fact that numerous guards were close by. In the distance, they could see a mountain feature that they had recognized and they had identified in the previous days. They identified this landmark before, and they knew that this is the direction that they needed to go. They also followed the sure guidance of the stars as they journeyed through the night, traveling towards safety.
Samaritan's Purse volunteers are in northeast Arkansas, patching roofs, cutting up downed trees, and removing debris after catastrophic tornadoes ripped through the region. Billy Graham Rapid Response Team chaplains are also on the ground there, comforting hurting homeowners and sharing God's love with them.
As you walk around here in Arkansas, you see a lot of devastation. You're seeing a lot of hurt. You're seeing a lot of people that are struggling with what they're going to do next. The community was hit hard by this tornado. It hit the communities of Truman, Monette, and Leachville. Samaritan's Purse is stepping in where homeowners need help. We're doing chainsaw work. We're doing debris removal. We're tarping roofs so that these people can get back into their homes.
We don't know what we're going to do with it at this point, but
to know that so many people in this world are willing to help and put themselves out there to lend that helping hand. It's the support, the praying, watching us cry, watching us laugh, and every other emotion we have going on.
That's unbelievable. With Christmas just 5 days away, it looks like we'll see just a minor reprieve in these frigid temperatures. But after Tuesday, it looks like we'll be headed back into the deep freeze. I'll have all those weather details coming up for you after the break. Welcome back. Well, if you thought it was cold, it's about to get even more cold as we get into Christmas, only 5 days away. We do have a little bit of a reprieve in the temperature, though, coming up on Tuesday. We're going to be in the pluses here. So +3 for Tuesday, and then we are going to drop again for Wednesday. Another drop for Thursday as we're looking at a chance of snow coming up on Thursday, Friday, and right through Christmas, actually. -21 the high on Christmas Eve. Saturday, Christmas Day, -24 the high, and the high for Sunday, Boxing Day, -25. Those are the highs, by the way. Look at those lows also down to -27, -28 overnight with the snow there. So it is going to be a very frosty Christmas this year, just when we thought we were going to have a brown or green one. -1 rather is the average high for this time of year. -13 the average low. So we're dropping way below that. 14 degrees was where we were at back in 1954. That was our highest temperature on this day. And back in 1951, we had our chilliest, which was -35. 8:25 is when the sun rose this morning. Our sun set this afternoon at 4:33 p.m. Okay, so let's take a look at what's happening on the west coast for Tuesday. We're looking at a chance of showers in Victoria, high of 4 degrees, 2 degrees the high in Vancouver. Also looking at showers there. Periods of snow also in Edmonton is what you can expect up there, -4 the high. -1 in Calgary will be the high for tomorrow as well, with a mix of sun and cloud. As we look to the rest of the prairies for Tuesday, we're seeing a high of -11 in Saskatoon with partly cloudy skies. Same thing for Regina here, -11 the high. Keep in mind the wind chill factors are going to be high for these areas. -12 the high in Winnipeg tomorrow with partly cloudy skies. As we look to the central part of the country, Toronto sitting at a lovely 2 degrees tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud. -5 expected tomorrow in Ottawa, and -1 tomorrow in Montreal with flurries expected there as well. As we move on over to the east, taking a look at Atlantic Canada, Maritimes, Fredericton, 4 degrees the high, chance of snow. We're looking at flurries and showers. In Halifax, high of 4 degrees, 1 degree in Charlottetown with snow there. Flurries also expected tomorrow in St. John's, Newfoundland with a high of 1 degree. So there you have it. That is your forecast. Small business owners in the Maritimes are worried they're going to have to lay off staff or close their doors because of Omicron and new government capacity limits. Brendan Doherty says the restaurant chain he co-owns lost hundreds of holiday bookings when government restricted capacity went into effect. He says at least half of his kitchen staff are self-isolating and waiting for COVID test results. Doherty hopes the government will offer help as it did in previous waves of the pandemic. The Saskatchewan Health Authority says it's ordered the closure of a Saskatoon meat business due to rodents. Inspectors visited the Afro-Caribbean meat processor and warehouse last week. The authority says the majority of food had been significantly contaminated by rodents. It says that it's seized all the food and has secured it. An industry group representing some of Canada's biggest automakers says public electric vehicle charging capacity is nowhere near what's needed. Brian Kingston, president of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association, says a national electric charging network requires years of careful planning. He says Canada has not done the planning and instead has a fractured response with very low ambitions compared to the rest of the world. Starbucks says it will negotiate in good faith with workers in Buffalo, New York, who've agreed to be unionized. In a bargain letter sent to all U.S. partners, Starbucks Executive Vice President Roseanne Williams said that the company hasn't wanted unionization, but she says it respects the legal process and wants to work with those in Buffalo who voted in favor of union representation. Spider-Man: No Way Home now holds the title for the second biggest opening weekend ever, behind only Avengers: Endgame. Sony Pictures says weekend grosses for the third Tom Holland-led Spider-Man came in even higher than expected, with $260 million from North America ticket sales. It's also the best opening weekend ever for Spider-Man films, Sony Pictures, and the month of December. Wow. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 200 points to 20,538. The Dow was down 433 points to 34,932. The S&P 500 was down 52 points to 4,568. And the Nasdaq was down 188 points to 14,980. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 211 to 68.61 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 14 cents to 383 US. Gold was down 12 cents to $17.90.81 US an ounce, and silver was even at $22.27 an ounce. Wheat is at $12.76 per bushel, barley is at $9.69, canola $22.86, and corn is at $10.67 per bushel. Live cattle were down 28 cents to $134.48. Feeder cattle were down $1.03 to $159.23. Lean hogs were down $1.33 to $79.48. And the Canadian dollar was even on the day at 77.27 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, a house fire early Sunday morning caused an estimated $250,000 in damage. The residents of the Westside Lethbridge home were displaced along with their pets. Fire crews from 4 stations arrived at the scene only to find the garage full of flames, but were able to keep the damage from spreading to other areas of the house. Up next, a young scientist doing research at the University of Lethbridge thinks he may have found a more effective solution to help farmers fight fungal infection in their fields. Keep it right here. That interview is after the break. Biotech startup companies face a number of challenges getting their businesses off the ground, and part of that challenge is the cost of specialized tools and equipment. You may have seen recently on Bridge City News an interview we did with Lethbridge, a company located within the University of Lethbridge that offers its space for these startup research and science-based businesses that aren't able to get their hands on the money for labs or equipment needed to conduct their research. Well, one of those startups that Lethbridge helped is a company called Paramoria, started by Brent Puchelski. Brent joins us today to talk about how he's helping grain and oilseed farmers better fight fungal infections in their fields. Brent, welcome to the show. Now, you're a molecular plant pathologist. Can you tell our viewers what you do in this role and how you picked this as a career?
A molecular plant pathologist studies plant diseases, though from a more of a molecular genetics and biochemistry perspective, in addition to the usual mycology and biology. I picked this due to molecular biology becoming more crucial for solving upcoming problems and the descriptive power that it enables it. Diseases are a tight interplay between a variety of organisms and pathways, And understanding those balances enable us to better manage disease outbreaks.
Wow. Okay, so we've heard a lot recently about the federal government wanting farmers to reduce fertilizer use. So, what are the issues with using fungicide on fields? And maybe talk about how your work can even help southern Alberta farmers.
Fighting diseases for what they stand is very difficult compared to insects and weeds due to the invisibility of the nature of the disease. Is that for things such as Fusarium head blight, uh, you have the disease that happens before really symptoms can emerge, and your critical window, you kind of have to guess at. So this leads to fungicides being a lot more emotionally applied at times, is that you don't know if you got it. So to make sure that you're safe, you spray it preventatively or like a prophylactic. So you apply fungicides to save your operation, and whether you have it or not, you're kind of just putting it down as an insurance policy. That can be a problem in itself just because it's expensive, and it's chemical that's going down when it might not be necessary. According to research done by Dr. Carasay and others with AAFC, potentially up to 75% of these fungicide applications might be unnecessary or unwarranted because they're either off target or they have no target. So you're spraying when no real disease is present. It must be stated that fungicides are a very powerful tool, and when they're used correctly, they provide an unprecedented level of control. It's just that farms in general around the world rely very heavily on fungicide usage, and there's a better way to handle it.
Okay, yeah. So I was going to ask you, what are some of the issues with using fungicide on fields? And that would definitely be some of them.
Some of the issues with it is that despite it being used as an insurance policy, it is not an inert substance. A big example is related to fish, is that fish, when exposed to pesticides such as propiconazole, can experience sexual dysfunction and a whole host of other maladies, especially for species such as rainbow trout. And that's just kind of one example of ways in which it can really affect the environment, is that various different organisms can be very heavily affected by it. Of course, too, with soil mycology and stuff like that, you can also kill off beneficial organisms when you're applying this compound where you will.
Okay. Now, Brent, we've heard so much about the agriculture-related innovation at the University of Lethbridge, and so many people at the U of L are helping farmers work smarter and save on input costs. So what do you hope to achieve through your innovation and research at the U of L?
Through this project and other things we're attempting, we hope to build with our company, hope to build a platform that's able to facilitate development of other technology and other projects that sort of fell behind on the wayside. Within the literature, I feel there is a tremendous potential for what you can do. A lot of tools that are available to fight things like drought, environmental degradation, and climate change have already been built in some capacity and then abandoned because of impact score or shinier things. From a scientific perspective, there's cooler things to do. And I feel that deciding what tools we can use because they're not in or cool at this moment of time period is a horrible way to save the planet. So we have to go with what we have already. And I'm hoping to develop more of a platform that's able to take stuff that got stuck in the literature in a way, stuck in science, and put it out there more and make it available.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just like, what specifically are you doing right now? Maybe talk a little bit about that.
What we're doing right now is we are designing a disease monitoring system for farmers' fields, which is able to report on a weekly basis exactly what sort of diseases or pathogens are present in their fields. A lot of the tools available right now are prediction models or risk factor assessments. And we want to give farmers the actual real spore numbers and populations as they happen week by week during the growing season. In this way, we can detect disease coming in weeks before symptoms even emerge, and we can buy them a lot more time than what typically they have to react with. And so if they do have a problem, they can respond calmly and reactively to the situation. And if they don't have a problem, they don't have to do anything. As it is right now, a lot of situations are being that other factors, other stressors can cause a spraying decision. So if the price is high, or my neighbor's out there doing it, or I guess it's raining a little bit more than I thought, we hope to give them a calm baseline that will enable them to react appropriately to the situation, not have to have a feeling of panic or desperation if it looks like things are bad when they actually aren't.
That makes a lot of sense. It actually takes the guesswork out of that, and you're almost giving them like a diagnosis.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really, really neat. So we had read actually that your father had an impact on your research. Maybe can you tell us about the work between you and your father?
This venture is kind of a joint work between us, is that I'm on the molecular side. So I am doing the molecular genetics back end of it. Trying to identify a big problem with identifying species or doing diagnosis from aerial samples is that everything kind of looks the same. Is that a lot of the spores and a lot of the target organisms are very hard to diagnose just based off of microscopy. And so by using a molecular genetics approach, you're able to much more quickly identify what organisms you have in your field. Fred, he is on the more the field side, and he actually was the principal inventor for the trap itself. So something that's rugged, field ready, and able to sample without much input. And so we're kind of it's a unique combination of more the tried and true old style of doing things and a lot of these new technologies coming forward.
Okay, so to maybe tell us about what you're doing at the university, what your partnership is with them.
At the University of Lethbridge, I'm working with the Simbridge space. Simbridge is unique, I feel, amongst a lot of the potential incubator startup groups for more biotech stuff. Other institutions we found, especially in regards to the COVID-19 situation, were not very welcoming and either expected us to have a Silicon Valley level ability of funding and backing in order to do the absolute basics.
Wow. All right. Well, maybe tell us why this partnership with Signbridge is so important to someone like yourself.
If I didn't have the SimBridge relationship, I probably wouldn't have been able to have prototyped it and tested this whole product out. A lot of the asking prices for other places and situations would be like, we either own the technology, we either own most of your company, or you have to give us an exorbitant amount of money for us to even attempt to look at it. A lot of this technology is not so out of reach for situations, but being able to have all the infrastructure, all the things in place is a lot to ask of a startup firm. And so that relationship is important just because for a startup in which we're trying to bootstrap things and we're trying to be very lean and make things very quickly and learn very quickly. Other institutions wanted a more corporate, slower pace of things. And we're just we're a bunch of innovators, we're a bunch of inventors just trying to figure stuff out. And so SimBridge is important because it enables that freedom in order to do what needs to be done.
That's neat. Are you able to give us any real world examples of how your research at the U of L has helped Alberta farmers? I know you talked about the fungicides, and you also talked about almost that triage. Do you have a real life example?
Since we're a private company, we were very pushing hard for being out there and doing direct interaction. So we're already working, all of our technology, all of our testing is already working directly with Alberta farmers. This is farmer driven in a way. It's very focused on the producer's concerns first and foremost, never mind the research question. And so all of our data has been real world farm data. All of it represents real operations. And they were able to make decisions on their operation based on the data we were able to give. This year, we were still testing it. So we did have the caveat of saying that, hey, just do what you usually do. We don't know if this is going to work. But we were able to give everybody the real data set of how the year for 2021 went for them. And so everything we do is real world, already out there, already doing things.
Definitely. So, Brent, what are your goals for the next 5 years for your research and company?
I'm just happy to make it through another year, to be honest with you. I have long-term plans, but I'm kind of at this point just doing it year by year and seeing how it goes and seeing how the traction is. I'll be extremely happy if I'm still doing this by year 5.
Well, I wish you all the best with that.
Thank you.
A fight over a U.S. investment bill, a devastating typhoon in the Philippines, and could Israel be in even more danger? Here to discuss it all is our foreign affairs correspondent, Lisa Daftari, joining us from Los Angeles. Lisa, welcome once again to the show. So great to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So President Joe Biden's hoping to pass a $1.75 trillion domestic investment bill, which is known as the Build Back Better, and aims to expand the social safety net and tackle climate change. But Democratic U.S. Senator Joe Manchin said on Sunday that he would not support the bill. So is this a fatal blow to Biden, Lisa?
Well, perhaps, right? So obviously, all eyes are on Manchin. This was a very brave move by the Democratic senator because, that they're expected to go along party lines and support everything the president wants and what the Democrats want. And you have very progressive and very vocal lawmakers like Ilhan Omar and Bernie Sanders saying this is just BS, and they're very disappointed in him, while you have Republicans championing Senator Manchin and saying, thank you for being moderate, thank you for being sensible, thank you for being sane. Obviously, this is not where the money and priority should go. We've always had this battle, especially in more recent years, among Democrats and Republicans. Democrats wanting to just spend. A lot of focus on climate change, a lot of things that Republicans don't consider the priority, particularly right now when we're having a devastating economy here in the United States. Basic food costs, double, triple the amount it did just 2-3 years ago. You're paying $6 at the gas pump per gallon in many cities. And, it's the holidays, right? So it's very difficult for people like Manchin to really prioritize things other than the nuclear family and their basic goods and the economy, and to get people back to work and to get everything going again. This, as we have another variant, sweeping through. So I think that it's a good time for people to cross over the political aisle to see what's sensible, what works, and what really does Build Back Better mean. It doesn't particularly have to do with infrastructure or climate change, but maybe it has to do with building back what American priorities are and what is most important to Americans right now.
Does it seem to you that he took more of a Republican stance? Like I said, it comes as no surprise that this senator is being slammed by other politicians, particularly on his own side, for not supporting Biden's bill. And I saw that tweet from Omar, by the way. It was, I didn't know that politicians could talk that way on Twitter.
Yeah, the squad, as they call themselves, and I hate to give them more credit than they're due, but they don't act in a very typical or professional manner. In many ways, they are the bullies, right? So they tweet whatever they want, they spew a lot of hatred, and they feel like they can bully their way into getting more power and more influence than newcomers to the Congress should have, right? And look at the amount of media attention that is on them. Ilhan Omar or AOC or Rashida Tlaib, they can tweet something, and of course it gets all these headlines just because it is so radical, and it is something that we're not used to. Typical politicians who go to Washington to do their job, that's not how they speak. And to your question, I think it's a great question. Do we consider this a Republican move by Manchin, or is it just him being sensible and making a decision based on what he believes is pragmatic and not what a party dictates? And I think that that's an important way to move forward. Right now, we are seeing a lot of politicians having to switch parties just because they have certain beliefs about a certain topic, right? And it's a very isolated topic. And then, we're not allowing politicians to say what makes sense to me. If I don't believe this, I don't want to be canceled by my party. Manchin right now facing all of this scrutiny. Why? Because he decided on something independently and not along party lines. But again, cancel culture is after him. I wouldn't be surprised if he switched parties because of this. And look, for a lot of these old school Democrats, if you line up their political views from decades back, they sound like Republicans. Joe Biden himself, roll back the tape, right? You're watching him in like the 80s, the 90s, even about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and he sounds very different than what the Democratic Party is today. And again, people like the Squad, these women, others like Bernie Sanders, are pushing the Democrat Party further and further left. They want it to be the progressive party. They want it to be the socialist party. That's just not American. And I think that traditional Democrats are finding a very difficult to find a place at home in their party.
It's happening up here too. You're getting people crossing the line, so to speak. It's kind of interesting to see what's happening. Now, you mentioned earlier the variant, which is kind of making headlines everywhere. So this Omicron variant is hitting Europe with supersonic speed, and public health experts there are warning that the U.S. could be headed in the same direction, facing record waves of infection in the coming days and weeks. And Biden actually saying that this could be a winter of death. Is this a little extreme, Lisa, or should we be concerned about this? What are you hearing?
More fear-mongering tactics from the White House, and we're not surprised. So let's start with Europe. Yes, we're always looking at Europe first because that's how it initially took Europe by wave. If you remember, Italy, France, the UK reporting, all those cases and deaths, unfortunately, in the first months of this pandemic. Then it came over to the United States. We had New York City hit really badly until it traveled into places like California. Big cities hit very, very hard. Again, we are already experiencing that in the United States with New York City and Los Angeles experiencing, again, reporting daily record highs, not hospitalizations, by the way. They're calling this more of an cold than Omicron, meaning it's actually might be a great way for people to get immunity with a cold that is not as bad as what the original or Delta, which was a worse variant, more severe variant was. We're not seeing the number of hospitalizations, but the White House sending out a message saying that if you are vaccinated and boosted, of course, well, then you should be fine. But if you're not vaccinated, prepare for a winter of death. This is literally coming from the White House. That's not exactly the cozy Christmas message we expect from the White House, but we're not surprised. They're taking this as an opportunity to push the agenda. Look, if the boosters worked, we wouldn't have all these breakout cases. If the vaccine worked, we wouldn't have all these breakout cases. But of course, it is preventing hospitalization, which is a wonderful thing. But it maybe the natural immunity from this variant that is not as dangerous might be actually a good thing. We can hopefully work towards that herd immunity that we talk about. And hopefully we can put a little of that fear mongering aside for the holidays.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing like a message that says Merry Christmas, prepare for death, right? And you'd mentioned the immunity. So we're hearing that this super immunity, so to speak, could be possible with this. Would this be people who have been vaccinated and then got COVID and then are over it? It's actually increased their chances of getting over it by, 1,000% or something? What are you hearing?
1,000-fold, right. So it's very interesting because all along, people who have had COVID, whether it was in the initial phases or throughout, or have had their kids have COVID, have argued that their immunity should take the place of a vaccination, meaning, they have more immunity than the average person who is vaccinated and perhaps even boosted. And now with Omicron, they're saying, yes, that is actually the case, that if you do get this variant, you will be better protected than somebody who is vaccinated and boosted. And you know what? It's just, it seems like a crapshoot, right? We're just making it up as we're going. And obviously, some of it's based on science, some of it's based on fear, and some of it's based on changing the initial science that we believed once was true. It's very difficult. A lot of people are doing immunity tests to see if they should get boosted. In some countries, they're doing a fourth booster already. So these places, I might add, Jeanette, they're still having breakout cases. So people are still getting COVID. And again, it will prevent the serious cases, the hospitalizations, perhaps the need to get oxygen and get on a ventilator, which again is a wonderful thing. But there are breakout cases. And again, this natural immunity that one can develop from actually getting COVID, they're saying is going to far, far supersede that what one can get based on a vaccine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, turning our attention now from COVID to the Middle East, an Arabic language Twitter account of the Islamic Republic of Iran over the weekend tweeting a threatening image regarding Israel. Lisa, the images insinuate the planned elimination of the Jewish state. What's going on?
It's startling. If you see this, and I tweeted it out with an explanation of what it is just a bunch of matches in the shape of the country of Israel, and then a little matchbook, and then it says basically like, try us, right? An open threat using the American owned Twitter platform, which cancels everyone who has an opinion. Donald Trump can't be on there. So many conservatives can't be on there. But yet the Taliban is on Twitter, and Hamas is on Twitter, and the Islamic Republic of Iran is on Twitter, actually making threats against a sovereign state in the Middle East. So it's a very interesting time. I have to add, at the same time, when they're making this threat against our main ally in the Middle East, we are at the negotiating table trying to strike a deal with Iran's government. What does this show? I mean, what kind of cooperation does this show? What kind of change in behavior does this show? They are threatening to blow a country off the map, our main ally in the region, and here we are pining for a handshake with a country that we know is going to get the nuclear weapons, is going to continue putting its money towards terrorism, will continue its human rights abuses back at home. And here we are. Look, it just doesn't look good. We are on the wrong side of this. History will judge us very, very poorly. And this, after the debacle that happened in Afghanistan, this administration has been on the wrong side. Just frankly, it's as simple as that. They've been on the wrong side. If they flipped the coin, they'd probably have better accuracy with regards to foreign policy. But what's going on with the Iranian regime is wrong. We have 80 million people in the Iranian population that are telling us, the majority of them telling us, that their government has done nothing but abuse them and kill them and torture them. And they're basically shooting at protesters that are coming out onto the streets in peaceful protest. And here we are trying to strike a deal with them at the table and really normalizing and justifying a lot of the actions of this very brutal regime.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the talks between Iran and the U.S. How are those talks going?
Yeah, look, the optics are not good, right? Not only are these other extenuating circumstances going on, right? We're finding out that they're not cooperating with the IAEA in the best way possible to give us transparency about their nuclear program. We're finding out that they are enriching uranium at percentages above what they should be doing. Again, shooting at protesters, doing their normal, putting money into Yemen and to Iraq and to Hamas and into Gaza and all those places where they support terrorism. But you have the officials coming away from the negotiating table saying, this is really not working. It's not looking good. We're trying to get back into an Obama era nuclear deal. And things are not even as good as they were back then. And that was a bad deal. Let me tell you, that was a bad deal. And now it seems like the Iranian regime thinks that they can get away with more. They know that the guy who's in the White House wants this deal more than the Obama administration wanted it, if that's even possible, so that they know that they're the ones who could call the shots. They know that they don't have to make any compromises. They're not making any concessions. And in fact, we're hearing that they're making more demands. So they haven't been able to get it to get anywhere with the negotiation so far. And we know that the clock is ticking and time is running out. But again, they know we want it. and they will do whatever it takes. And guess what? We do want it. And they're going to continue going back to the negotiating table until they probably get a deal.
Wow. And speaking of time running out, we only have a couple minutes left, and I wanted to get to this devastating typhoon that hit the Philippines. So the death toll has reached at least 146. They say it's the strongest typhoon to hit the Philippines this year. I believe there's been a number of them, and greater devastation might be yet to reported. Lisa, what's going on? What are the details there?
Yeah, the footage is awful. I don't know if you had a chance to look at this, Jeanette, but I encourage everyone to do so and keep an eye on it and help out as best as possible. These are areas that are prone to getting typhoons. It's the climate in the area. They're calling out for help. Many people missing. So that death toll will rise significantly, unfortunately. But, devastation. It's just all of this rubble. They can't get through it quickly enough to get the people out of harm's way. And again, the infrastructure there is just not equipped to handle this kind of natural disaster. So they're in our prayers, they're in our thoughts. And if you can get any kind of help or aid over there, you can give a few dollars online to help them out. It's a wonderful thing to do during the holidays, especially. And we hope that the world bodies can get them some actual legitimate help that can get these people out of harm's way soon enough.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely pray for everyone there in the Philippines. Absolutely. Our hearts are with them, especially during this time. During the holidays and stuff. Just what a time to be hit with devastation. Absolutely. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's always nice to have a conversation with you.
Great. Thank you so much. Lisa Daftari is our foreign affairs correspondent joining us from Los Angeles. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.